Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's almost afternoon. It's like a little bit before noon. Again, I just want to say thank you for being here. I was so concerned that the fabulous people that we're here to honor were not going to feel all the love that they deserve, because there were so many people panicking about the weather and trying to get out of here sooner. So it's just so nice to see all of you here. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of our honorees. I actually get affirmed. Every once in a while I think, wow, that decision to move separate out the honorees and sort of create a bookend to our conference, I wonder about that. But this affirms for me that it's really important for us to gather again at the end of our conference, to set some time aside exclusively to thank some of the folks that have really made major contributions to our field, to social work education. So again, thank you for that. First, I want to make sure that we acknowledge our sponsors, Our Lady of the Lake University at Wharton School of Social Service and Sacred Heart University, Master of Social Work. And now we're going to honor some of the folks that have just really impressed us. And if you've had an opportunity to work with them, I know that you feel exactly the same way. So I would like to ask Dr. Rocío Calvo to come up here to join me.
Thank you.
Dr. Rocío Calvo is a selection this year for the Distinguished Recent Contributions to Social Work Education Award, which recognizes a social work educator's achievements within the last 10 years. So I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Calvo. She's recognized as a leading scholar in the field of immigration and social welfare. Dr. Rocío Calvo has developed a body of work on the role of social service provision in the integration of immigrants that has become a model of positive disruption. Don't you love that? Positive disruption in social work. Dr. Calvo's observation that Latinx immigrants value the quality of their interactions with providers of services as much as the specific services that they receive. Think about that. That's at the very heart of social work. They value the relationship and the quality of that interaction even more than what they actually receive. Let's not lose sight of that. And that observation led to the creation of the Latinx Leadership Initiative, or the LLI, in 2013. The LLI reimagines social work education, research, and practice by positioning the cultural assets of Latinx populations at the center of social work practice and scholarship. Since its foundation, the LLI has prepared more than 100 bilingual and bicultural MSW students and 5 doctoral candidates to work with Latinx communities towards sustainable solutions for complex problems. Dr. Calvo's work with the LLI has been supported by the Spencer Foundation. Dr. Calvo serves on the Diversity and Inclusion Steering Committee of Boston College, where she is a faculty member, on the Autism Commission of Massachusetts, and on the Advisory Committee of the CSWE Center for Diversity and Social and Economic Justice. She is also the national co-leader of the Grand Challenges for Social Work Challenge on Achieved Equal Opportunity and Justice, an initiative that was launched by the American Academy of Social Work and Social Welfare. Dr. Calvo is also, because she's just, has much more energy than I do, the president of the Association of Latino Social Work Educators. Awards for her work include the Mentor of the Year from the Boston College School of Social Work and a mentoring award from the CSWE Council on the Role and Status of Women in Social Work Education. Dr. Calvo has also been recognized as an influential St. Peter's woman by St. Peter's College at Oxford University. Please join me in celebrating and acknowledging and thanking Dr. Calvo for all of her work.
Joanna tapped nervously on the steering wheel. It seemed as if the traffic light was never going to turn green. Pablo would be dismissed from school, and waiting for her at the schoolyard was not good for him. He had started wetting his bed at night again. The dread of something happening to his dad was simply too much for this third grader. Joanna's husband was fighting removal proceedings. He had been ordered to go back to El Salvador. Although Joanna and her husband pretended that all was okay in front of Pablo, the 8-year-old knew that his family may not be together for much longer. Traffic was not too bad, Joanna thought. She would have time to leave Pablo with Tia Rosa, a good friend that lived just a few blocks away from her apartment, and make it to class on time. In less than a month, Joanna would graduate with an MSW from Boston College as part of the Latinx Leadership Initiative, or the LLI. That is how everybody called it. She did not feel much as a leader, to be honest, but she was ready to work with her community. She knew things had to change on how her community was served, and she had the skills to change them. She thought for a second on the past 2 years in the LLI, the classes in Spanish, a cohort model of social work education in which for the first time in her life, she was the majority in a classroom. Because everybody looked like her and shared similar life experiences. The countless readings that focus on best social work practices with Latinx communities, with her people. And how to forget the field placements with Latinx families that trusted her, that counted on her, and with advisors and supervisors that not only knew how to work effectively with her community, but that also looked like her and that understood the meaning of being a Latina social worker. Today, Joanna is the founding director of an innovative program that provides mental health service to unaccompanied children in public schools in Massachusetts. She had to fight hard to change how mental health services are provided for these children, but she succeeded, and her program is now being replicated in other schools around the country. She was a leader after all. She is a leader. I am very honored and very humble for this award, and I want to express my gratitude to CSWE for this honor. I also want to recognize countless people that have contributed to the success of the LLI, many of which are sitting here today, even with the snow. I only can accept this award on behalf of more than 130 LLI graduates working with Latinx communities around the country. These awards belong to them, not to me. I want to dedicate it to all the Joannas out there. They are transforming the way social work with Latino communities is done in this country. So, to all of them. Okay.
Thank you. Rocío Calvo, PhD. Here I am presenting to you the Distinguished Recent Contributions to Social Work Education 2019. Thank you. Congratulations. And now I'm going to ask Dr. Hillary Weaver to come up and present our next nominee. Hillary Weaver is the Vice Chair and Secretary of the Board of Directors for CSWE. So if you didn't know that, now you do. Thank you. And you can just use this button to forward things.
Hello. I'm so happy to see so many of you here at our awards luncheon, honoring people who are so deserving. And I am thrilled to be a part of honoring Dr. Terry Mizrahi and recognizing the work that she has done in service and leadership in social work education. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her credentials, do a few highlights. There are so many, and I know that you have most of that written in front of you. Put on my glasses, getting a little bit older here. Dr. Mizrahi is a professor at the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College of the City University of New York, where she co-chairs the Special Commission to Advance Macro Practice in Social Work and the National Social Work Voter Mobilization Campaign. We're here to honor her today as the recipient of the Service and Leadership in Social Work Education Award. So that particular award recognizes a social work educator's service excellence over time that advances, promotes, and provides a significant contribution to extend the reach of social work education. It acknowledges extraordinary leadership contributions that impact social work education locally, nationally, and globally. And she fits every dimension of that award. In fact, I think she exemplifies extraordinary service and leadership. She has been a fixture throughout my career. She has always been there, like a touchstone, like something stable, always reminding me about the best of our profession. Her work is my example, and an example to many of us. A few of her achievements that I would like to highlight include her scholarship. Her scholarship addresses the issues that are at the very core of social work. She has 5 books and over 70 articles and chapters. But it's not just about what she writes. It's not just about what she has to tell us. She makes space for all of us, for each and every one of us. And what really has been at my heart is her work in bringing together content that reflects the breadth and the depth of social work as the co-editor-in-chief of the 20th edition of the Encyclopedia of Social Work. That was such a service for all of us to have that volume brought together, and I really appreciated your leadership in that. That to me is a major moment in our profession. And she has done so much in terms of professional leadership. She was the president of the National Association of Social Workers from 2001 to 2003, and much of that overlapped with my term on that board. So as I was a young social worker just aspiring to leadership, you were there. You were my role model. And you have always been there. Even when we haven't really connected a lot at conference, I see you there. She has always been there for many of us. And her work with the COSA, I think that is such a pillar of our profession. She's the founder of the Journal of Community Practice and has always been reminding us that macro is central to who we are as a profession and has always been so. Her work involves bringing people together. It involves coalition building. She was doing interprofessional collaboration before that was trendy. I mean, now everybody's on that bandwagon, but she has done that throughout her career from the very beginning. She reminds us of grassroots advocacy and how that is our heart. She has received recognition before, of course. A lot of people recognize all that she has brought to us. So in just a few of her achievements, she's designated as an NASW pioneer. She received the Hunter Presidential Award for Excellence in Applied Research and in Community Leadership. In 2004, she won the Career Achievement Award from ACOSA and was inducted into Columbia University School of Social Work's Alumni Hall of Fame. She completed a Fulbright Fellowship in Israel in 2006 and continues to train and consult there with academic and professional leaders. She's done a lot, but what I really like about today, I love the theme of our luncheon, honoring our own. And we claim her as our own. I claim her as my own. I am just thrilled to be a part of recognizing her contributions, both past and present. She's an example for me, she's an example for all of us of social work at its best. And so I would like to invite Dr. Terry Mizrahi to the stage to give a few remarks.
If I was nervous before, how can I top that? Oh, thank you for the honor and privilege of standing before so many of my friends and my family. My son Josh made it here, and so many colleagues. Paul Kurzman, who hired me for my first job, who had to leave. But sitting here, Steve Burkhart, so many of our Hunter and our Special Commission friends, and to my long-term professional partner and colleague, Darlene Bailey, who had to leave for some medical issues back in Philly, they would all be here. But mainly, I'm here to say, macro persists. Yay! And I see. I just would like to have folks who are in the macro movement, whether you're a commissioner, whether you're a macro supporter or ally, just raise your hands. Wow, almost everybody. Yes, that's what we were hoping. And my Hunter connections. I know there were some students, colleagues, anybody who's connected to me through Hunter. A lot of those folks had to head back to New York, but they send their love. This is what the Academy Award winner feels like, I guess, in the few minutes given. I know I'm already forgetting some people, and thanks to CSWE, this nominating committee, and to Hillary. Who knew? I hope you're videoing this so I can send it to my daughter, who happens to be on a book tour now and isn't here. But I do have to thank a few people who absolutely transformed my life and career, who had my back. They fostered my leadership abilities, and which leads to this amazing award today. So, dare I go back to the third grade? Whoa. It was the third grade that I believe I discovered my leadership style, which fostered my whole professional career. Don't worry, I'll be doing a lot of fast forwarding. But it was the first time I recall that there were student government elections in the class. We were to elect the 4 typical leaders, as you know. As I recall, so many years ago, there was a 5th position. And that said, that's me. I seem to value that role. And it seemed the best way to make a difference professionally. What was it? What made me choose the errand monitor? The errand monitor? It was the student who took messages and news from the class to the principal's office, and more importantly, brought news back to the classroom. It got me out of the classroom. Well, it was fun. It gave me a lot of responsibility and trust that they trusted me by the system. What was I? I was a bridger, an intermediary, a connector, a networker. I loved moving into the wider world, seeing what was out there, representing the views of my classmates, bringing those announcements back, and I still love that role and that type of leadership that I hope I continue to play today in my research, in my teaching. in my scholarship, and of course, in the activism for the profession. I'm mentioning Beth Rosenthal, Julie Abramson, Vicki Rizzo, Candace Berger. You'll know that most of my writings are collaborative. I always believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, I want to recognize that I am still some version of that Erin monitor. Fast forward to the NASW presidency in 2000, and that model of leadership was to see NASW as a coalition and reject that either-or framework. You wear two hats to be effective: the whole, which is the profession, and its many parts. It had the board, it had its commissions, it had its sections, it had its committees. There were all these wonderful moving parts that makes our profession so dynamic and flexible and more influential on the policy arena. It's not easy to manage. We accomplished a lot going into the 21st century, including the first social work summit that brought together 43 organizations. Barbara remembers. You need a community, which is social work, and you need a home, which is your passion or specialty. And those are what make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. In the few minutes I have left, I want to thank a few people that may not come to the fore for some of you. I'm eternally grateful to the professor of NYU as an undergraduate in a sociology, family sociology course, gave us a choice of writing a term paper or volunteering in a youth-serving agency. And as my son Josh would say, duh. And there I went off to Lenox Hill Neighborhood Association, one of the first settlement houses in New York City, and I was assigned to run a 10-year-old girls group. I discovered all these wonderful people working inside the building, all ages, outside in the neighborhood, organizing tenants, building community. Who are they? They call themselves social workers. I never heard of that before I was 18. Well, I want to be like Mike. So that's how my journey began as a group worker and ultimately into community organizing. A special thanks to Naomi Gitterman, my first social work supervisor, who years later would not let me leave the profession when my heart was no longer in it. There's no reason for you to know that I withdrew from my MSW at Columbia as a casework student with no intention of coming back. Then she and her husband, Alex Gitterman, and I know you know him or his name, they opened a community center in a low-income public housing project in the Bronx, and they said, we want you to run our summer day camp. What? I had no experience. I didn't think I could take on that leadership role, but they did. And I went on to have such a successful summer that I knew I wanted social work. And so, you may know the chapter in the book on Social Work Matters, how and why a caseworker became a community organizer. There were too many system and policy issues that were impinging on those clients' lives that could not be solved alone on a micro basis. I saw that as a 20-year-old. One positive policy change at ACS, the Child Welfare System, or at NYCHA, the Public Housing Authority, one change could affect thousands of residents or patients. Those obstacles had to be removed before or while those wonderful clinicians could bolster and support individual clients who were struggling. I'm grateful the Department of Columbia, when I went back, for forcing me into an unknown and uncomfortable environment. All you field people there, take heed. That allowed me to grow and change. Do you remember the forms where you checked off which of these areas that you like, and so I remember of the 20 categories, aging was number 19, and hospital settings was number 20. Guess where I was placed? At a senior center. Oh no, I can't face dozens of people like my bubby. That is, some of you may not know, is the Yiddish word for grandma. Even though I loved her, I thought the school was tricking me, punishing me, or the rankings were upside down. Needless to say, that was a transformative experience working with the elderly. It made me confront my ageism, and the ageism that existed then and still now. A shout out to Steve Burkhart and all the folks as part of the radical aging movement. Look it up. And you know what? I learned a second lesson. I learned that stereotypes come from valid generalizations. Some people were exactly like my Bubby, obstreperous, difficult, rigid. But so many more were wonderful, energetic people, some of whom I realize now are much younger than I am today. And then, after rejecting hospitals on that list, my first organizing job was to get a new hospital built on the Lower East Side of New York for 4 years. It had stalled for 10 years. And how did we do it? By building coalitions, building grassroots groups of patients and health workers, using political advocacy, all macro skills. And we were successful. And if Paul hadn't left, I would say, ask Paul Kurzman. Fast forward to an unanticipated change in my career direction when I went south from New York City to Virginia. I married a man. And imagine moving from Williamsburg, Brooklyn to Williamsburg, Virginia. It's about as far removed from one to the other as you could imagine. I was offered by the dean of VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, to teach community organizing practice after 6 years. What? OMG. The dean asked to teach? I was terrified. I went to all my friends. I was teaching. What do you do? And they said, don't worry, just have a syllabus and close the door and you could do whatever you want. That was the advice of Richard Cloward and Francis Piven. But I had faith in the people who had faith in me, and those academic professionals pushed me way beyond my comfort zone, and I became an accidental academic. So much for career planning. And I stand before you today, I'm making another move. I'm moving on from Silverman Hunter. After 39 years in a privileged role of professor, I use that title that Alice Johnson coined, the scholar activist. I don't use the R word because, as you can imagine, that's about as far removed from my reality as possible. But I'm going to continue with the special commission, making macro matter, and I hope whether you're clinical or an organizer or a manager or a policy practitioner, you'll join us. I end the narrative by invoking voting as social work. Mimi Abramowitz, who had to leave, and I are co-chairs of the nonpartisan National Voter Mobilization Campaign, begin with the Humphreys Institute at UConn, CRISP, ISP. At the end of 2017, we enlisted and start today, and we ask you to continue to vote, enlist every social worker, to enroll every eligible client in a nonpartisan campaign on the road to 2020, and to help them get out to vote. We're entering that phase now. The census is around the corner. Social work counts, and social work votes. Stay tuned for NASW announcing this big initiative. Let's celebrate our profession and the influence we can have on as advocates and social change agents, linking micro and macro perspectives. The whole is greater and different from the sum of its parts. So I leave you with a gift of a metaphoric kaleidoscope, you know, those telescopes with the beautiful lenses. What happens if you shift the kaleidoscope a millimeter? A whole new transformative pattern, not little incremental change. So do one thing differently. Shift that kaleidoscope. One additional thing in your practice. Challenge yourself. Challenge others. Encourage, support, provoke. I end by saluting President Obama, as he quotes Martin Luther King, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends to justice. I remember that each day as I contribute my small part to our profession. I find inspiration in Obama's words, keep hope alive. And as a friend of mine, Zach, right here, coined yesterday, what's our buttons for next year? Macro rising. Yay.
It is my privilege and my honor to give this award to Dr. Terry Mizrahi for service and leadership in social work education 2019.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I get in on this?
I think you should hold your award.
You should.
Great.
I now invite Dr. Lori Messenger of the CSWE board to the stage to announce our next awardee.
Hello. Thank you. I am here to present the award for service and leadership in social work education to Dr. Robert Vernon. Often when you ask people in the field how they know somebody, they often point to one project or one experience, one committee, one activity they did with them. But for Dr. Vernon, our nominators had multiple points of contact. The BPD Committee on Technology and Distance Education, the Social Work Distance Education Conferences, the Council on Accreditation, the Board of Directors, an accreditation consultant, one of many listservs that he runs. There are so many ways that we're connected to Dr. Vernon. As someone who helped develop 3 different social work programs from startup, the BSW program at Kuka College, the BSW program at the University of Indianapolis, and most recently, the completely online MSW Direct at Indiana University, Dr. Vernon continually shares his knowledge to help other programs develop accreditable degrees. As most everyone here knows, and anyone who's been on any of the listservs he's created knows, one of Dr. Vernon's strengths is technology. Elected to the CSWE Board of Directors in 1999, he started and organized its Committee on Technology. This was at a crucial time when programs were just starting to explore online degrees. Then elected to the CSWE Commission on Accreditation, he started and organized its Committee on Research and Information Technology. His attention to the intersection of technology, social work education, and social work practice put him on the forefront of so many cutting-edge ideas in our field. How we use instructional technology to reach all of our students, using things like Second Life. Heck, way back in 1992, he was a founding member on the Committee on Electronic Mail, back when we called it that. Committed to supporting communication between colleagues, he is the owner of the BPD, MSW, and distance education listservs, among others. He co-organized 2 national conferences on distance education and was actively involved in setting U.S. national standards for using technology in practice. One of the things that has impacted me most, and maybe all of you as well, is that amazing poster that he created with Darlene Lynch, his longtime collaborator in 2000, sitting right at that table. You'll need a social worker when. You remember that? That was an amazing thing. If you hadn't seen it, for those of you who were under a rock somewhere, or haven't been around as long as some of us have, it's wonderful. It was downloaded by over more than 300 programs, and it explains what social workers do and the many complicated ways we enter people's lives and communities' lives. So in the spirit of that poster, I'd like to read my own list. We have needed Dr. Robert Vernon when? When we wanted to develop a new program and we needed advice. When we were trying to develop standards for our online programs. When we wanted to know what was going on in the discipline and stay up to date. When we needed a site visitor who was thoughtful and fair. When we had an idea for a textbook that we wanted to write. When we wanted to be sure our website and teaching resources would support people with disabilities. When we wanted to explain what social workers do. When we wanted to organize with folks who shared our interest in technology. When we wanted to learn from others about what the best practices are in using technology in social work education. When we wanted to teach our students how to critically evaluate information they read on the internet. When we wanted people to stop responding to all on the listserv. When we wanted to know how to access open resource materials. When we were concerned about how ethical issues arise in online teaching environments. When we needed someone to lead a conversation about how we could approach the future and our relationship to technology, to move the conversation forward, to think about what's on the horizon and how we address these new concerns. When we needed someone to chair, to serve, to show up time and again, to help our profession wrestle with the complicated, exciting, challenging relationship with technology in all of its forms, we needed Dr. Robert Vernon. We have all benefited from his work, and we honor him today with the Service and Leadership in Social Work Education Award. So I'd like to invite Dr. Vernon to come up and share a few comments.
As a sixth grade valedictorian for my class, I approached the podium and this wall of dread just descended. So since that time, I practiced a lot. I'd like to thank everyone. This is a great honor. I've enjoyed success directly for many people over the past years who have both taught and mentored me. I'd like to acknowledge three people who have really changed my life and supported me completely. Certainly my beloved wife, Catherine. We've been through everything. My period of psychedelic lighting, groovy. Union rep for General Telephone. Hey, we got labor studies in our school. Many crises, the normal things that go on. And Catherine, I love you. Let's see what the next 51 years brings. We occasionally discuss separate nursing homes, but we're still. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Marilyn Flynn. Marilyn was my dissertation advisor and mentor when I was getting my doctorate, who kindly told me, yes, Bob, you could do that, you could write it, but why don't you stop? That was wonderful. She also gave me a tremendous sense of social justice. I remember watching Marilyn in front of the Detroit mayor and city commissioners who were very hostile because her research had unequivocally proved poor girls were getting computer data entry, poor boys were getting jail. And she stood her guns, and they were furious. Still that way today. I'm also grateful to Marilyn because she started the MSW program at University of Southern California. Before that time, several of us wanted to go online, but the faculty was dead set against it. Our dean, Mike Patchner, joked he could take his faculty into a burning building before he could take us into distance learning. Marilyn then announced about 2011, 2010, that she had 2,000 students that were going to go online. And the faculty woke up. This was good. Finally, I want to acknowledge my research partner, development partner, education partner, practice partner for almost 30 years, Dr. Darlene Lynch. Would you please stand? Come on, stand. 40 juried presentations on technology later between us, 9 juried journal articles, 2 editorial positions in two journals, 1 MOOC, which we still haven't completed. We're trying to do a MOOC for high school students so they understand more about what social work is. 1 book, don't buy it, it's 20 years old, none of the links work. And finally, MSW Direct, a program we're very proud of with over 400 students in 16 time zones. Kind of scary. Like, Finally, I'd like to talk to those of you in the audience who will share this award with me in years to come. You may know who you are, you may not. You may not even be in the room, but just in case you are, I've got some pointers that I've learned rather painfully over the years. First one is, don't do everything yourself. If you do, you'll do it wrong and it's going to blow up in your hands. So next, bring in and support the people who you need and give them every resource they can possibly use. Okay, it's as simple as that. If you remember the old Douglas McGregor theory of X theory, Y theory, X being micromanagers to the extreme, Y being basically do your own thing and have fun. Don't be an X. And the reason is not only that they won't like you as a manager or as a leader, they won't share their dreams. And that's what you need. If you're going to build a coherent group, go through an accreditation or some other major task, you need the dreams of everyone at that table, and you need to have that going on. Instead, be an archetype Y. That is, by and large, find people, support them, basically give them what they will need. If you find they're taking credit for your work, you've done your job well. Okay, that's true. Service learning works. Final remark, have fun. It's okay.
This is the 2019 Award for Service and Leadership in Social Work Education to Dr. Robert Vernon. I'd now like to invite the chair of the board, Dr. Sandra Starks, to give the final award for the night. Day.
Thank you, Lori. Okay. I would say I'm not nervous, but I probably am. This is so special to me, and I probably would have arm wrestled anyone who wanted to do it instead of me. So, it is truly my great honor to present the award for significant lifetime achievement in social work education to Dr. Iris Carlton-LaNey. If anyone epitomizes the essence of this year's theme, it is Dr. Iris, looking back to move forward, or looking back while we're moving forward. So, I first met Iris on a trip to Ghana, sponsored by BPD back 20-ish years ago, when we were both relatively young, probably in the mid-90s or early 90s, I don't remember, but I was so inspired and just recognized the respect she garnered and the wisdom she had, even at that young age. So we've been friends and colleagues ever since then, through NSW, CSWE, BPD, NABSW, and on and on and on. And our last time together was sharing space in the vineyard, the 100 Voices in the Vineyard, when we were all there trying to decide how we're going to really move the arc of justice in terms of what's really happening now. And so we were considered the seniors, I can't remember the name they called us. The legacies, yeah, we were the legacies, but it meant the griots or the sages. So I was so proud to be a part of that with her. So I am going to read because I think it's just really important to hear what these people have done. And this is only a snippet of what she's done. Dr. Carlton-LaNey is the Berg Beach Distinguished Professor of Community Social Work at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She received her bachelor's degree in social work from North Carolina A&T State University, where the complex themes of inclusivity and social justice were nurtured. She received her MA in social work from the University of Chicago and her PhD from the University of Maryland at Baltimore. Her research interests include aging, African American social welfare history. Dr. Carlton-LaNey has several books to her credit, including Preserving and Strengthening Small Towns and Rural Communities, and An African American Leadership and Empowerment Tradition in Social Welfare History, In 2003, Dr. Carlton-LaNey was the recipient of the CSWE's Education's Distinguished Recent Contributions in Social Work Education Award. In 2010, she received the NABSW, the National Association of Black Social Workers, Distinguished Achievement in Social Work Education Award. In 2011, the CSWE Council on the Role and Status of Women in Social Work Education recognized and named her the Feminist Scholarship Honoree. And the Sisters of the Academy, SOTA, presented her with their inaugural Legacy Award. So she's done amazing stuff to get all those awards. And that doesn't even include her local community awards, which I'm not going to talk about. But in 2012, the University of Maryland in Baltimore identified her as one of its 50 Heroes for Justice. Maybe I am going to talk about it a little bit. And in 2015, the National Association of Social Workers named her a social work pioneer. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper appointed her to the North Carolina Social Services Commission in 2017. And NASW North Carolina selected her as the 2018 Social Worker of the Year. So over the last 3 or 4 days, I've asked some of her, I think they call themselves her professional daughters, or her mentees. They call themselves several things, but they're her following. What would you say about Dr. Iris? And first they told me that there are hundreds of them. They're not all here, but that there are hundreds of them that she has touched. So this is what one of them said, and she said, I probably speak for most of them, that Iris, Dr. Carlton-LaNey, is the embodiment of a change agent, that she's changed the landscape of social work education. And I say she speaks truth to power too. I know this. But she's changed education by highlighting the contribution of Black people in general and Black women specifically to the profession of social work. And she's taught those thousands of social work students to search for truth through primary sources. Dr. Iris has mentored scores of social work scholars to continue the work of telling the stories of Black social workers, whether as a professor, as their dissertation chair, as a colleague. So we all should know this woman is committed to social work education that reflects the critical responsibility that we all have to take action for social justice. Her aura speaks to wisdom, truth, love, and light. So please join me in congratulating this amazing woman and all the gifts that she shared with us. Iris.
So thank you, everyone. I am very nervous. My hands are shaking, but I'll be okay. Thank you so much for staying. Most of my colleagues are back in North Carolina, woman, toasty. And I don't blame them, but I am taking names. So I am very excited to be receiving this award. I really want to thank CSWE, Darla, Sandra, and Lori for getting me through this and for being CSWE. Special thank you to Dr. Tricia Bent-Goodley for nominating me for this award. Oh, there she is. I also want to acknowledge people who wrote support letters, including my dean, who's in North Carolina. Deans Tanya Bryce, Jenny Jones, Sharon Cook, Vice Chancellor Yvette Murphy, Program Chair Tanya Perry, and Dr. Carmen Crosby. I'd like to acknowledge my UNC Chapel Hill colleagues. If any of you are here, please just kind of raise your hand. I'm glad you stayed. But we do have to get home. So. I also want to acknowledge my students, if there are any of them in the room. I've taught social work at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, at North Carolina Central, at Jackson State University, North Carolina A&T State University, and now I'm currently at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'd really like to acknowledge former but current students at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Please give yourselves a hand. I really want to acknowledge my family. My brother and my sister are here. We all stayed in the same room for the last few nights. And so you know when elders get together, what do? We reminisce. So that's what we did without our partners, which is a different experience. Yeah. First, my sister, Dr. Sandra Carlton-Alexander. Sandra is my role model. My parents always wanted me to act the way that she did. But, you know, it was a little difficult for me, but she, my sister Sandra is intellectually gifted. She was like the valedictorian of our high school class. She had the highest average in her college class, okay? So then there's my baby brother. Well, we used to call him our little brother until he outgrew us. So now we call him our baby brother. Our baby brother, retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. He's also a retired major commercial airline pilot. So here I am, sandwiched between these two very high achieving people. So what do? Become a social worker. That's what middle children do. We were blessed to have two older brothers. Our parents had 5 kids, but our 2 older brothers were adults when we were born. So we only got to know them as adults. I really want to thank Will Scott. And many of you might not remember Will. Will brought me to my first APM in 1976. So Will is why I'm here. Another thing I'd like to say before I proceed. This is North Carolina A&T State University's homecoming, euphemistically called GHO, the greatest homecoming on earth. And my brother, my sister, and Professor Christopher Solomon are here, and they didn't do that. Aggie pride. I have lots of pages. No, I'm kidding. So teaching social work has always been a joy and a challenge for me. After 40 years of teaching, I almost always anxiously anticipate the beginning of the semester, and I always get nervous on the first day of class. I've learned so much from the people whom I've taught. For example, they teach me many things. They teach me how to use my phone every time I have to change phones. I just know, I just take it to class, somebody will tell me what to do. They also teach me what's going on in contemporary practice, because I'm not there and they are, and that's a real important thing. So as they teach me, they teach each other. They teach me many things. They taught me that this condescending, overconfident way of explaining things to people who identify as female has a name. It's called mansplaining. I didn't know. I didn't know. They keep me up. I remember when I first started my first teaching job at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte after getting my doctorate. Very early on, I met this diminutive woman from Wilmington, North Carolina, named Sonia Yvette Murphy. So after interacting with Yvette and having her in a couple of classes, I realized that this young woman was very bright. Then I understood this young woman was brilliant. I continuously thank Sonia Yvette Murphy because she taught me that I actually can teach people who are smarter than I am. I look for the Sonias in my class the Yvettes, because they help me to teach. They're there, and I find them every semester. And I try not to give them too much of a job, but I have to ask them to help. Social work, the intellectual content is manageable, but it's the values that undergird what we do, that frame what we do. And so a lot of our students struggle with that part of it. And that's where my students help me to teach. And I value you for that. Thank you. And then I have some stuff here about I teach to transgress. So, you know what, I just try to create a classroom environment where people feel comfortable saying what needs to be said, where we all feel comfortable saying what needs to be said. That doesn't always work, but it works more than not. And it gives all of us an opportunity to learn from each other. I'm often criticized for not following my own course outline. That's almost always on my evaluation. But I teach confronting oppression, and I teach social welfare policy. And my question is always, how do you stick to your course outline when all hell is breaking loose all around us, and we don't do it? So. I'm done. I just want to say again, thank you all so very much. I hope we all safely get home, and I appreciate your being here today. Thanks.
Oops. I told her I have to put my glasses on to read her award. It says, the Council on Social Work Education presents Iris Carlton-LaNey, PhD, Significant Lifetime Achievement in Social Work Education 2019, the award.
Thank you.
Well deserved. Okay, before we close, was that not amazing? That was amazing. That was amazing. And before I close us out, I forgot one thing I was going to do. Iris, would you just stand right there for a minute and just look out? I want those who told me they were her professional daughters to stand up. Just stand up. Yes. See? They're out there. Yes. Yes. And now I want her students who are here to honor and support her to stand up. Yes. And then all of us that love her, use her work, and respect her, stand up. So now you can have your seat, Dr. Iris. And to the rest of the awardees, congratulations too. I would have second arm wrestled to probably have presented Terry Mizrahi, who's also, we have lots of travels together too. So all the honorees, Bob, Vernon, and Macro is here. Don't have my button, but it's here. And thank all of you. Give yourselves a hand for staying the course. Yes. And for making this a great 8 p.m. So let's plan to have bigger and better next year. How does that sound? So be present in this space next year with us. Okay. And safe travels, and have the best year yet, ever. Thank you again. Darla, would you like to, wait, Darla would like to say anything?
I actually don't need to say anything more, but just thank you, thank you, thank you. Safe travels. See you next year.